Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 50 of the Show Me Show podcast. That's right, we made it half a century through in Show Me Show podcast episodes. We're now officially over 1 year. And on today's grand episode, episode 50, we got a pretty grand show for everyone. So we got the Super Bowl 57 recap, where the Chiefs bring home their third Super Bowl trophy in their history, defeating the Eagles. So we'll recap all that, plus the Super Bowl parade that took place earlier this week. And then we'll recap NFL honors a little more in detail than what we did last week. And then some NBA trade deadline talk. And then we'll finish with some of our segments with some really interesting talk. So let's go ahead and get right into the show. And let me turn down my mic because it is probably... forgot to turn it down, so it was probably pretty loud there at the beginning of the show. But you know what? Who cares? Who cares? It's a grand episode, Cam. Episode 50. It needs to. Definitely. The beginning of the show needs to be very loud and grand.
All right. Well, where should we start? Just start with the Super Bowl here.
Yeah, I agree.
Great game. One of the better Super Bowls. Although we've been lucky, we've had some really good ones in our lifetime, at least since we've been able to really watch with intent. Because back in the old days, early years of the Super Bowl, most of them were just blowouts. So we've been pretty lucky that the big game has been an awesome Super Bowl year after year lately. Luke, my first note here. Yeah, there's been a couple stinkers. I mean, Rams, Patriots, Chiefs, Buccaneers wasn't the grandest of Super Bowls.
Yeah.
Obviously, Seahawks, Broncos.
But this one was on a different level, man. This one was awesome.
Yeah,
everything from the beginning, to the pregame, to the national anthem, to the first half, to the halftime show, to the second half, to the fourth quarter, to the last drive of the game. Just everything was just perfect. It was a great night of football. Great event. Good job, NFL. I don't want to applaud the NFL very often, but I will.
Well, and sure you can pat them on the back here, but my first note about this game is I warned you about the field at State Farm Stadium, Phoenix Stadium, whatever you want to call it, the Arizona Cardinals field. It was a disaster. Probably worse than the Verbo Fiesta Bowl this year. It was a slip and slide for the players, for the refs. The only people who didn't slide on that field were the dancers during Rihanna's halftime performance, but I think they were on platforms the whole time, so that doesn't really count. But it was a slip and slide on grass, man, and we got word this week that this was the Sod Father's curtain call, and if you don't know who the Sod Father is, he's basically just this guy who's been in charge of the turf grass, for every single Super Bowl that's ever happened. So all 57 of them. This guy's 94 years old, so thank God he's out the door. And he was a Chiefs fan, Luke. And there were some stats that came out that 38% of Patrick Mahomes' dropbacks, there was a slippage of a pass rusher on 38% of his dropbacks on the grass, and only 14% of dropbacks for Jalen Hurts was there a Chiefs player who slipped. So 24% difference there. And if you were watching the game with intent, you saw that the cameras gave us a good picture of all the players on the Eagles switch their cleats to a deeper cleat, like a longer one, so that they would get better footing in the grass. And the Chiefs players didn't have to do that, almost like maybe they knew that the grass was going to be this way, a slip and slide all night long, and came prepared because they didn't have to change their shoes really as much. Just something to point out. but it was the Sod Fathers' last call. And I'll be honest, after that, I'm not surprised, like I said, because the stadium this year has had some real woes with the grass in terms of slippages. Luckily, no unreal injuries between the Fiesta Bowl and this game, but just not a good look. It was not a good look for the NFL. That was one thing that was a really bad look for the NFL, was because if there was also all this news, Luke, that came out about how they nurtured the field for a month, spent $800,000 on this field to give it sunshine every day.
That's more than what some NFL players make in a single year.
True.
Just FYI.
Most of them make more than that, but true.
No, probably most of them don't. You think most of them are probably on rookie contracts? There's a lot of players that are on rookie contracts.
Yeah, but those guys also get some kind of bonus too.
Yeah, that's true, I guess.
So, but they nurtured this field, and it was a nurture versus nature situation when it came to game time, and nature definitely won. As, like I said, this field was just a hazard, and as we pointed out last week as well, ugly field, not the best on the eyes. Luckily, the jerseys kind of helped with that. The jersey matchup was good, I thought, but that's my first note here, is just that this field, we warned you a few weeks ago, and it came to play, Luke. The grass came to play.
Yeah, it did. I'm looking at salaries right now. It looks like, there's 1,000 players that make over $950K in the
that's
NFL.
Close to the league minimum.
So yeah, there's very few that probably make under the whatever you want to call it. But yeah, this was I don't know. It's kind of hard to rig a game when you're making the playing surface, because both teams are playing on it. Like the Chiefs could have had maybe some inside info or something, but would it really make that big of a difference?
Who knows?
Probably not. Yeah, I mean, maybe they could have done something to their cleats, maybe, but it was a bad look for I don't know why they have to bring in this sod, this grass. Why can't they just grow it on? Like, why do they have to roll it out on the field? Why can't they just grow it on the field, like a regular baseball field? You know, baseball field, they don't roll out grass or whatever. They just have grass.
Baseball fields are horrible to play football on. If you've ever watched any college football bowl game ever, Pinstripe Bowl,
that's true.
Horrible. Fenway Bowl was disgusting. You know what? I don't know if I watched the Diamondbacks Bowl, whatever game that was, but baseball fields, they suck. And apparently there's a mix between football grass and golf grass, which I don't know why you would go for it with a hybrid for the Super Bowl. Like, get your best football grass in there. And it did have an impact, a true impact, because like I said, one of the biggest storylines from this game was how loaded the Eagles' front seven was, as we talked about. And the Chiefs' offensive line is loaded too, and they played one of the best games that they'll probably ever play. But there were 0 sacks both sides of the ball. So
that's not true. There were 2 registered sacks from the Chiefs. I would imagine probably they gave one of the Chiefs players one on the Nick Bolton return, even though it technically wasn't a sack, but he did lose the ball behind the line of scrimmage. There were 2 registered sacks in the game. I'll look to see who they gave him to.
Okay, well, the other one was just the one where Jalen Hurts ran out of bounds for a -1 yard gain, and somebody was right next to him. So that also doesn't really count either, in my opinion. So both teams were affected in terms of pass rush with this grass. It's kind of like when they play in snow almost, in terms of slippage and not being able to get a grip. So, yeah, the grass was bad. That's all I'm going to say.
Very bad. The officiating was not as bad as the grass. It actually was pretty good throughout the game. You know, we mentioned that Carl Cheffers, most flags in the NFL all year.
Clean game.
I thought they did.
No offensive holdings.
Yeah, I thought they did. very good job. Obviously, the call at the end is going to get scrutinized because of the magnitude of it. Was it the right call? Yes, but should they have let it go? Probably. That's literally what James Bradbury was saying. Like, he was like, yes, I did hold him, but I thought they were going to let it go because they had been letting it go the whole game. So I don't know. I think in that moment, I disagree with the throwing the flag, even though it was technically the right call. Like, it's hard to argue that, whatever. But it is hard to see a game that was that good and that well fought by both teams end in that way.
No,
you would have liked to see, Jalen Hurts get the ball with the chance to go, because Jalen Hurts played out of his mind, man. He outplayed Patrick Mahomes in that game. I mean, Mahomes played really well, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions, lots of rushing yards. But Jalen Hurts had probably a top 5 Super Bowl performance of all time. It was definitely the best performance by a losing QB ever. I think he broke Tom Brady's performance, ironically, against the Eagles.
Yeah. Well, he was Tom Brady was great that night.
Yeah. But he was great. Like, Jalen Hurts ran the ball all over. He was just scoring left and right. He was the reason the Eagles stayed in that game. We talked about last week, in the preview, we had the guy off. Like, the Eagles have more guys. They had the more complete team, but a lot of those guys didn't step up. Jalen Hurts did. And then you go over the other side of the ball, and then there's Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes and the guys. And speaking of Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes and beating this Eagles defense, I have on my list here of things to talk about that Doug Peterson helped the Chiefs win. And you asked me beforehand what this meant, and so I'm just going to say it right now. The call, the Kadarius Toney touchdown. You remember, like, when he kind of started to go in motion and then he stopped, came back the other way. He literally could have walked backwards into the end zone. Could have moonwalked in honor of Michael Jackson. But
football guys'
the Chiefs,
dream was that play right there.
Oh yeah, in the Super Bowl too, man. But if you look, the Eagles played the Jaguars back in Week 4. Do you remember we had the Doug Peterson revenge game against the Eagles? And Jamal Agnew ran the exact same route that Kadarius Toney did. And it came out the exact same way. The Eagles defense got confused. They started going with the motion. They got fooled by it. And then boom, Jamal Agnew could have, rolled into the end zone. Andy Reid, I think something came out. I don't, maybe in the post game, but I don't know. NFL Elite Takes on TikTok, on Twitter. He's a great account. This is where I saw it from, but basically the Eagles were watching a lot of film on the Chiefs were watching a lot of film on the Eagles defense, and they saw this play and they're like, hey, this could work because this play absolutely discombobulated the defense. And sure enough, they ran it twice too. They just ran it on opposite sides of the ball. And actually they messed it up on the Kadarius Toney play too, because the NFL Films released, some of the mic'd up audio, and Patrick Mahomes went to the sideline. He's like, I saw, Toney was not in the right position, but I just told him, just, reverse it or something. They scored by accident on him. That's how good the play was. And who designed that play? That's right, Doug Peterson. So, one last slap in the face to the Eagles franchise, and then, the Cardinals proceeded to hire that guy who was responsible for, that call on defense as their head coach. So, but we'll get to that next week when we do the coaching preview.
Yep.
And the 49ers players were right. All week they were saying Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, they were saying, hey, this secondary is going to get cooked in the Super Bowl. And he's like, hey, if we would have had Brock Purdy, if we would have had a QB, we would have won that game. They were probably right.
I still think
I'm not going to say they're definitely, but
I still think the Eagles defense was freaking flying around against the 49ers even before Brock Purdy got hurt. That's why I think that they would have been able to stick that one out, especially at home. But yeah, that was the story of the game, Luke. The Eagles defense, they didn't get up for this one, really. They didn't cause any true turnovers. And we say, Jalen Hurts outplayed Mahomes, which on paper he definitely did. But the Eagles they ran their game plan to almost a T, almost perfect. I mean, they dominated time of possession to where, Patrick Mahomes was not on the field as much. And Patrick Mahomes got aided there a little bit in terms of not having to drive down the field with that Kadarius Toney huge punt return, and then obviously he scored as well. And then obviously Sky Moore scored too off that same play. But, they got a little bit lucky with some shorter fields. Not lucky. I mean, that's all skill, but he just didn't have to put up as much heaviest stats as Jalen Hurts did. Because you're right. I mean, Jalen Hurts, whatever they needed, he gave them, was launching the ball down the field all night long. Devonta Smith and A.J. Brown both played good. And Devonta Smith probably played the best. And Dallas, Texas Goddard, man, he had some incredible catches. There was a point in the first half where I was like, are these guys ever going to drop the ball? A complete 360 or 180 from when, the Raygor and Arcega Whiteside days of old. That's really not that long ago. So I'm sure Philly fans at least appreciate that, because I remember sitting there with me and my dad. We're both like, are they ever going to drop the football? Because they just kept making huge catch after huge catch. And, of course, we haven't talked about this play that much on this show, but the 3rd down and 1, and they even ran it on 3rd down and 2 a couple of times. And, of course, 4th down and 1, the QB sneak with Jalen Hurts, where they just pile drive him across the line, and it was unstoppable. And it has
there was literally
all year.
There was a play where the Chiefs literally hit Jalen Hurts like 2 yards behind the line of scrimmage, and he still gained 3 yards on the play.
Yep.
Like it's an unstoppable play. So credit to whoever came up with that idea, whether it was Sirianni or Steichman, I think that's his name. I'm just learning about him since he got hired. But whoever came up with that, phenomenal play call, because that thing, you cannot lose with it. And, now we're talking about it potentially getting banned because Sean Payton was like, well, I'm just going to run that every single play, and that would not be fun, obviously, as a product to watch anyway. But, that play, it happened so many times during the game, and it's automatic. It is automatic. It happened first touchdown of the game, too. First touchdown rushing. Let's go. That was a good one. First touchdown style. But, yeah, this game it lived up to the hype. There was a lot of offense, which was good for a lot of bettors out there, probably, hitting the overs, hitting the yards, hitting the touchdowns. Even though my Jerick McKinnon anytime touchdown scored came up just short, literally just short. People are talking about that, though, about Jerick McKinnon being a nice guy. But
true. Great teammate.
Yeah. This is one more thing we got to mention. Mizzou making an appearance in a big way in this one.
Finally gets their first touchdown in Super Bowl history. I thought it was their second, because I thought Kendall Blanton scored one the year before, but I think he scored that touchdown against either the Buccaneers or the 49ers. I know he scored a playoff touchdown last year. For some reason, I got so excited, and I thought it was in the Super Bowl too. But nope. First ever Mizzou touchdown in Super Bowl history. Nick Bolton on
defense.
And it's
by defensive player.
Almost had 2 of them as well. Very close. I can't remember if it was Miles Sanders, if he would have just made a football move with the football, he would have had a second touchdown as well, which probably would have locked up MVP for him, which is crazy to think about. But
yeah, to rob, can you imagine, like, we're looking back years' time on Patrick Mahomes' legacy. He's got 4 or 5 Super Bowl MVPs, and he's like one behind Brady, and it's just like Nick Bolton. Nick Bolton took one from him. That would be very funny. But he's had an amazing season. I think he led the league in tackles.
Yeah, we
could be wrong with it. Maybe it's AFC.
Me and my buddy Wyatt were looking at this stat. He had 180 tackles during the regular season. And if you do some simple math, Luke, that is over 10 tackles per game. So
Crazy.
just insane to go sideline to sideline, man, 10 times a game pretty much, and it's just awesome. I love watching former Tigers and former Tar Heels, but, especially Tigers because I get to see them in person a lot too, so it's always fun to get to watch him. And I'm glad, he's a Chief. Because, a lot of Mizzou fans are also Chiefs fans, not us, but, a lot of them are. And I saw at the Super Bowl celebration, he let out a huge MIZ to the Kansas City crowd, responded with a great ZOU, which there's a lot of Jayhawk fans that are also Chiefs fans, obviously, because they're right there on that border too. And I'm sure that just irked them so hard at the Super Bowl celebration hearing that. So I'm glad he did that. Makes me feel good about Mizzou a little bit. So yeah, that was cool. And it's just so surreal. It's just so surreal, Luke, when you're watching, because it hasn't happened before. A Mizzou touchdown.
Yeah, that was my first thought because, when he scored, we were all yelling, "Oh, Mizzou, yeah," And then I was thinking that might be the first ever Mizzou player to score in a Super Bowl. And if that is, it's on defense too. Like, who would have thought that? I mean, Nick Bolton was a Mizzou Tiger legend. The last few years of his career, he literally carried the defense. Second round pick, and then now he's the first Mizzou player to score in a Super Bowl. So you can't cement your legacy pretty any more than, and he did it for the Chiefs, a Missouri team. So I mean, this dude is just cementing his legacy here as a Missouri football legend. If he's not in the Missouri Hall of Fame,
he will be.
He will be. Yeah, he will be. He needs to be.
And you're right.
Then, also,
oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, we were talking about how it's kind of shocking that there hasn't been a Mizzou player, because don't get me wrong, it's not like Mizzou has put out a ton of Hall of Famers. They really haven't. But, Kellen Winslow, they never really got to many Super Bowls, and so he probably never even got a chance to score one. Obviously, J. Mack never got to a Super Bowl with the Eagles. He was after that, and he didn't get to one with the Chiefs. That was a little before the Mahomes era. There's been plenty of players that have played, Ziggy Hood for the Ravens. Obviously, if Coney Ealy and the Panthers would have won the Super Bowl, he would have been the first Mizzou Super Bowl MVP, which would have been insane. He had one of the best Super Bowl performances ever in that game, in terms of a defensive player. So yeah, it was just so cool. And, it was cool for me because I was just sitting there on my couch. The only Chiefs memorabilia that I own is this DH Gate Nick Bolton Chiefs jersey. And it was like, oh shit, that is so sick.
Were you wearing that jersey?
I am sporting it right now for the show. 3-2 Nick Bolton.
No, I meant like during the Super Bowl.
Oh yeah, I was wearing it. Yeah, I was wearing it.
Oh, that's got to be awesome.
Yeah,
I've never had a player that. Yeah, I've never had a player that has scored while I'm wearing their jersey in the Super Bowl. So,
yeah,
that's very specific, but that is a cool moment. So, and it's just so cool to see just Mizzou defensive player get a touchdown in the Super Bowl, and then also shout out the Chiefs offensive line because
incredible
going up against the defensive line with the most sacks by a long shot in the NFL this year, and they held him to 0. So a large part is, Pacheco. He ran out of his mind all night. Pacheco played amazing too. So shout out to some of the guys, on the Chiefs that don't get as much credit.
Yeah.
And then
shout out to the fat guys.
Yeah. And then halftime show was amazing too. I mentioned that earlier, but it was awesome. It was awesome.
Commercials just aren't what they used to be anymore, Luke. It's a sad situation, but I think it as much as I hate this, it's probably the woke media, man. It's just they just shut down, they just can't have these edgy commercials anymore. Sad times we live in terms of Super Bowl commercials. I feel like anything should be on the table for Super Bowl commercials because you have to pay so much money for them. And
I
anything
agree.
should be able to go. So
It's society. Society has ruined Super Bowl commercials. Like, if we lived in Russia, I guarantee you we'd have some great Super Bowl commercials. They don't care over there.
Unless it was against the government.
Well, yeah, that's true.
Then they would probably
they'd probably murder you.
probably nuclear catastrophe in your
I don't know.
business.
You might just be disappearing very soon.
That's true.
But yeah. So yeah, that was awesome. Commercials not really awesome. They've been slowly going down like over the years here. Like even some like big companies like announce like they do like a pre-commercial or pre-Super Bowl commercial earlier on, and they're like the rest part 2's coming. The last time I can remember that was good was when Bud Light had the Bud Night, and they were doing the Dilly Dilly and stuff like that.
Yeah,
and they had a good Super Bowl commercial. That was the last time I can remember like a really good like series in the Super Bowl. I mean, now they're just mid. It's the best way I can describe it. Obviously the Sylvester Stallone, like when he was,
that
was stupid.
Look, it was stupid, Luke. But if there's going to be a commercial that I'm going to remember from this Super Bowl,
yes, I agree.
For years and years to come, I'm going to be like, remember when those fuckheads at Tubi got us to think that we changed the channel and we were all kind of looking at each other and freaking out a little bit? It actually caused some tension and chaos not at my house, obviously, but at some other households. We found that out on the internet.
Yeah.
Awesome tension.
How many dads and grandpas do you think got punched in the face? Or even worse, shot because of that?
I don't know if anybody got shot, but it wouldn't shock me if there was, some harsh words said, in the moment.
Especially,
I'm sure people wish they could take it back now that they now know it's a commercial, but in the moment you can't take it back. So,
especially in, like the city of Philadelphia, I can imagine there were some pretty pissed off old people, Oof,
yeah,
man, not a good scene. So, but the Sylvester Stallone, I forget what company it was, but when Sylvester Stallone was like, his mountain was making.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
"Oh, what are you doing?" Yeah,
the sneeze commercial.
That was solid. Yeah,
yeah,
I think it was.
I feel like that commercial takes a ding, knowing that we don't know if it was a Chiefs fan or Eagles fan that put a Chiefs jersey on the Rocky statue, but that legacy's over. It's over. So it's over.
It's done.
So yeah, I mean, Rocky kind of loses one there as well. Not his first loss.
That's so true.
But yeah. All right.
And another note, I told you so. The over on Rihanna songs. That was a lock.
Oh my God, that one blew it out of the water. That one wasn't even close. She just went banger to banger.
I literally texted you I literally texted you like halfway through. I was like, "Well, that's the over." It's like
I know. I was like,
5 minutes left in the show.
You gotta be kidding me! We still have like 6-7 minutes left. That was great.
Yeah.
Also, I missed on a ton of them, and maybe we'll review those incomplete, and that'll be like the last thing we'll do next week. Maybe we'll do that at the end of the show or something, just see how many we got to hit or not. I also know that Chris Stapleton.
No.
He was a full like 2 seconds under 124.5. So that was sucked. I don't know if it was heads or tails.
It was tails.
Okay.
Chiefs won.
There's a dub. I don't know what color the Gatorade was, but I don't think it was orange.
It was purple.
Okay. Yeah. So that's an L.
Yeah.
Miles Sanders, not first touchdown, didn't score twice. So
Sanders sucked.
Just a bunch of L's across the board for me. Butker, not first field goal because he missed that one. Just a rocky night altogether. That's gambling, though, I guess.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, at least you're not Big Cat and you lost $100K on that game. Well, you didn't lose $100K, but you lost the opportunity to get $100K.
192.
Is that what?
Yeah,
Is that what it was?
His bet was 22-1. He put in $8,000, $8,093, I think it was, at the beginning of the year. The 22-1 kid, and the payout was 200 something thousand, and it lost. So, also the doink, PFT got crushed with the doink. That was hilarious. And Hank won, which Hank is a villain. I don't want. We'll funny. Get back. Yeah, don't need to talk about it.
But yeah. Super Bowl parade. Mahomes and the boys were very, very drunk, and it was very funny. Mahomes, he took a picture with a fan with the Super Bowl trophy and then proceeded to hand the fan the Lombardi trophy and then walk away. So that was a tough scene, I would imagine, for him. I mean, someone had to tell him to turn around and go take it back. But I don't even know what I would do if I was the fan. I would probably just be so shocked. In the moment, I would stand there just staring at it, and then I'd either take off running and just try to, or I would hop over the fence and start climbing one of the trucks because I have the Super Bowl trophy. So I think I have the right to go hand it to the players, and then I could just stay in the parade. That would be pretty awesome.
Yeah. I think here's what I would do. I would first kiss it because that's just what you got to do as a football guy is kiss the Lombardi. But then I would simply just pass it on down through the fans. And eventually it would get stuck in the middle of the horde of fans. And it would just keep getting passed around, and hopefully they're all kissing it. That's what I would have done.
Oh, that would be awesome.
So
until someone drops it.
Yeah, I remember when Gronk brought it to a Red Sox game and used it to take BP, and they put a huge dent.
Dented it. Well, he didn't do a full swing. Because he was gonna do a full swing, and one of his teammates was there, and they're like, "No, don't swing it." And then he's like, "Oh, I'll just use it to bunt.
Yeah,
I'll just bunt with it," and then doink, and then there was a huge dent in it, which might be iconic someday. But I mean, This is the third year in a row where the Super Bowl winning QB has gotten so drunk that they've done something very stupid. So if you remember last year when that lady fell off the stage
and Matt
Stafford looked down at her and then he proceeded to just turn around and walk away. And she actually broke her spine, I think. And then the year before when Tom Brady, he tossed the trophy across over the ocean. Remember they were on boats and he tossed it to Gronk, and then someone had to carry him. You remember that video of him walking off the boat, and he was laughing to himself, and
he had to be held up.
Well, that's not as bad as a Chiefs player. I forget what his name was. Watson, I think.
Probably tight end Watson, 84.
Yeah. He got so drunk that he had to be wheeled out in a wheelchair. He couldn't even walk by the end of it. And he proceeded to tweet out and said, "Chiefs Kingdom, you did this to me." So that's kind of a compliment. And then also another Mahomes, he got a standing ovation for taking a piss. So that's just how great he is. I mean, if he was my QB, I would give him a standing ovation for taking a piss.
Yeah, it's just better than when we do it. That's just how it is.
Yeah. It's like watching greatness.
Exactly.
I'd give him a standing ovation for making food. I'd give him a standing ovation for tying his shoes. I'd give him a standing ovation for combing his hair. I'd give him a standing ovation for waving, for everything. I'd just be like, "Patrick, thank you for being my QB," So Chiefs fans are lucky.
True. I saw that you had Travis Kelce as delusional. I'm assuming that's just about the comment that nobody thought we were going to make the playoffs or something along those lines.
Yeah. If you want to say people doubted us, because that's completely valid. At the beginning of the year when they traded away Tyreek Hill, people were saying, "Well,
to win the West."
Yeah. They're thinking, the Chargers, they're building a team over there. Herbert, Staley, Russ Wilson traded to the Broncos. Him and Hackett are going to go off. The Raiders, they got Devontae. It's going to be a toss up in the West. But I don't think there were a lot of people. There were some people that said the Chiefs weren't going to make the playoffs, but I think we all, like, in the moment were like, no, that's kind of stupid. Like, you're an idiot for taking that. A lot of people had the Chiefs as a wild card, though.
Yeah, I think I did.
And not making it. Yeah, a lot of people had Bills winning the AFC. Some people had Bengals. Not a lot of people had the Chiefs, though, winning the Super Bowl. There were plenty of people that did, but, not as many that should have had. So in that point, I think a lot of those guys, like, yeah, at the beginning of the year, there was a lot of doubt, but I don't think anyone had a doubt that they would not be good or miss the playoffs. Like, that was a little crazy when he said that.
Yeah,
that was Super Bowl parade, though.
Yeah, but we do that every year. Because remember at the beginning of the season, we were just like, this West, AFC West, this is going to be the greatest division probably in football history. And it just wasn't, I mean, the Chargers were solid, but Broncos and Raiders, they both were horrible. It turned out, the NFC Beast was probably the best division in football this year. AFC East was also pretty damn good. Both of those conferences trumped the AFC West, that's for sure. So,
yeah, we were talking about the NFC West being really good too, and they only had one team make the playoffs. One team ended up with the third pick. The other one gave theirs to Detroit for the sixth.
They had two, Seahawks and 49ers.
Oh, that's right. The Seahawks did sneak in. I forgot about that. That was a fever dream. That wasn't real. I can't believe they got in over the. We're not going to talk about it.
We'll move on.
Over the Lions. We'll move on.
Yeah.
NFL honors?
Yeah.
Or you got anything more about the parade?
No, that's pretty much it for my cleanup, and obviously we'll just talk a little honors. MVP, Patrick Mahomes. I put duh. I mean, there really wasn't a second. I mean, I was a little shocked that Josh Allen got any votes. He did get one, I think. I thought Hurts should have had
I'm surprised that
better of a case, but he only got one as well.
Yeah. I was surprised that Hurts didn't get more, and he got the same amount as Josh Allen, which was very surprising to me because he had a way better season than Josh Allen.
Way better. Yeah. And then comeback player of the year, Geno Smith. I mean, also, duh. There really wasn't, I don't even know who would have been his running mate for that one.
McCaffrey.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah. I guess maybe because McCaffrey didn't play the whole year, maybe that factored into it. Walter Payton Man of the Year, Dak Prescott. Didn't know he was such a community guy. And obviously, this probably, maybe MVP, but this is probably the most important award, in terms of what it truly means. But it was funny when they introduced him at the Super Bowl as the Walter Payton Man of the Year, and he just got booed really hard, even though he just won like the most prestigious award in football. So
yeah, well, you know what?
Good moment.
I slandered Dak Prescott. I slandered Dak Prescott. Fair share. I don't think he's that good of a quarterback, and I hereby declare that I will no longer slander Dak Prescott's personal image ever again. You win the Walter Payton Man of the Year award, that deserves respect. I still don't think he's a big game quarterback. I'll slander his play, but I'll never slander his character or his image ever again. I promise.
That's big of you.
I know. Well, I mean, you win this award, you almost have to, man. It's a big award.
All right. Coach of the Year, Brian Dable. I think he probably ran away with it. But I think we talked about this before. There probably could have been a multitude of guys that could have won this one. But yeah, when you're bald and you coach the guys up like that after such a terrible last couple of years, maybe fix Daniel Jones in one season. Yeah, I mean, he was coach of the year. So good for him.
Yeah, this is almost a scenario where you would have been okay having a co-coach of the year with Doug Peterson, because both of those coaches literally just revitalized those teams. Like, they brought them back from the dead. They both made the playoffs. They both had top 5 picks last year.
Both
Jags had
fixed their
they had the worst
quarterbacks.
record. Exactly. Yes. I mean, this is phenomenal coaching work by both of them. And like the Kevin O'Connells, the Kyle Shanahans, the Nick Siriannis. They all had great coaching years, trust me, but they're a step down, from those two. The Doug and Brian. They had very, very good seasons, and I would have been fine with either one. Brian Dable probably was a little better because some people thought, oh, maybe the Jags have some hope.
Mm-hmm.
But not a lot of people put the Giants in the playoff race at all. So,
Oh.
But yeah, I just
was
wanted to
my
say
one
that
pick.
could have been a co.
Offensive Player of the Year was Justin Jefferson. Yeah, probably. I would say that's probably pretty valid.
It's literally the Offensive Player of the Year award goes to the MVP that doesn't play quarterback.
Exactly. Oh, that's exactly right.
Yeah.
Defensive Player of the Year, Nick Bosa, and so Trump would be proud. But yeah, he deserved it too. TJ Watt didn't play a full year, and he still, even when he was playing, he wasn't as great. Obviously, Aaron Donald had a way off year. Myles Garrett, not as big as the impact kind of guy that he has been in the past. Nick Bosa, though, probably his best season. So, yeah, he definitely deserved Defensive Player of the Year. So good for him. And then we have the Jet Sweep League. Offensive Rookie of the Year and Defensive Rookie of the Year both go to the Jets. So good drafting by them last year. Offensive Rookie of the Year, Garrett Wilson. And this was kind of just a wide receiver race between him, Drake London, and Chris Olave. But then you could also throw in Kenneth Walker, running back for the Seahawks. He had a pretty solid year. But I think everybody kind of knew it was Garrett Wilson too. And then the Defensive Rookie of the Year voting was not even close. Sauce Gardner had like all but 2 votes, I think, so pretty close to unanimous. I think Aiden Hutchinson got 1 and Tariq Woolen got 1, but Sauce Gardner nearly unanimous. So, and I would just simply say, yep. I mean, that's probably the right decision. So,
yeah, I mean, Tariq Woolen had a case, but he kind of fell off later in the year. Hutchinson, I think he had more of a case than what people gave him credit for, but
I agree.
He had a phenomenal year. I think he led the league, led rookies in sacks, but Sauce Gardner, he is just him. He's a great cornerback. He's going to be good for a long time. I didn't realize that Garrett Wilson had that good of a year though. But I really don't think there was like a dominating rookie this year. Like obviously last year it was Jamar Chase. And then the year before we had Justin Herbert and Justin Jefferson that both dominated. And so we've been blessed with some really good rookie seasons over the last few years, offensively anyway. So I think it was about, this is probably about a normal race. We've just had some really outliers the last few years.
Yeah. And then to add on to your Hutchinson note, I think Hutchinson had tied for most interceptions by a rookie as well. He had 3. So I think he had 2. He had 3, sorry. One of them, I think he tipped a pass and caught it one of his first few games. One of them he dropped back into coverage, which sometimes just throws quarterbacks off when an edge rusher does that, picked it off. And then one was like a disguise play where he was standing over by the sideline. I think it looked like he was talking to a coach, and then he just stepped up and got a pick. So I think he had 3, and I don't even think Gardner had 3, but I don't know if Gardner even got targeted.
Yeah. Well, also another added bonus to the Hutchinson one, the tipped one that you were talking about was Aaron Rodgers. So he picked off Aaron Rodgers. So that's not something that a lot of people can say, especially a rookie defensive lineman. So for the Lions at that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's NFL honors. Wait, do you have the Hall of Famers? I think we listed them last week though.
Yeah, I think we did too.
So not much to talk about. I mean, they're in the Hall of Fame. They're great. A lot of them were a little bit before my time. There were
Yeah.
some names that were obviously at the tail end. They were at the tail end of their careers at my time, but a lot of them are before. But it is weird. I had a feel old moment. Like I'm 19 years old. I'm not old by any means, and me saying I had a feel old moment probably makes people a lot older than me feel really old. But I'm 19 years old. I've never had that makes me feel old moment. When I saw next year's Hall of Fame ballot and I saw Andrew Luck on there, I almost had a panic attack because that's absolutely wild to me that he is eligible for the Hall of Fame in a year. Because I remember watching him at Stanford. I remember when he was supposed to be the next big thing. He was supposed to save an NFL franchise, and he did for a number of years with the Colts. And now he's played an entire NFL career, and he's waited 5 years after to be eligible for the ballot. That to me is just crazy that that's all happened in my memory. It's the first time I can truly say I've had a I feel old moment. Now, granted, Andrew Luck did retire probably 5 to 8 years before anyone expected him to, but still a very shocking I feel old moment for myself.
Yeah. I think my first I feel old moment, and I actually get these quite a bit, especially when I just find out of like players that have been out of the league for a while. Not just football too, baseball too, like former Cardinals that, end up like joining media and stuff. And it turns out they've actually been in media for like 3 or 4 years. And I'm like, holy moly, that I remember him, I think one of my first ones for football though, that really shocked me was like Calvin Johnson and Peyton Manning. Those both were like, holy, I watched these guys pretty much their entire careers in terms of when they were in the NFL. Obviously not all of Manning's, I was pretty young, but pretty much all of Johnson's. And you're right. I remember Stanford, or when Luck was at Stanford. In fact, one of my favorite college football bowl games ever that I've ever watched, Oklahoma State versus Stanford. Brandon Weeden versus Andrew Luck. Who else? I think we had Justin Blackman, one of the best college receivers that I've seen in that game. Fell off in the NFL due to marijuana. Who was a great tight end?
And
I
the
think it may have
Jaguars.
been Zach Ertz for Stanford in that game, if I remember correctly. I'll have to look. Let's see here.
Okay. That's interesting. I would not have guessed that, but
Yeah, I want to say
what happened
Zach
to
Ertz.
Zach? Is he still in the league?
Yep. Stanford, Zach Ertz was in that game as well. High-powered game. Yeah, I think he played for the Cardinals last.
Yeah, I knew he was there.
He's still
but
on the Cardinals. He's only 32.
that's what
So
the Cardinals literally had J.J. Watt. They had Zach Ertz. They had DeAndre Hopkins. They had Rodney Hudson.
Jones for a chunk of time. Chandler Jones for a chunk of time.
Oh, that's true. A.J. Green, David Johnson. They had like all these NFL legends, and then now they're just a shithole, to say the least. That's being respectful, honestly.
On that field too, they have to play on that field too. Even worse.
My God,
even worse.
Remember when Sean Payton said he wouldn't go there because the facilities were so bad? I think we see why now.
Yep, definitely.
Whatever though. You want to get to tough scene of the week before we talk about the NBA trade deadline?
Yeah, let's go ahead and do that. And I'll go first here. And pretty simple ones here, but they both were tough. And so this week I started going back to the gym this week. Pretty much first complete week at the gym since August 27th, I want to say. And on Wednesday at about 10:30 a.m.-ish, I dropped a 45-pound plate directly onto the top of my right foot. And it wasn't the flat, fall onto your foot. It was the vertical. So it was the full force onto the top of my right foot. Luckily, I had my basketball shoes on, so it shielded it a little bit. But instant tingly sensation. So my foot went numb. my whole right foot went numb for a second, a few moments actually. And it had been probably since like freshman or sophomore year since I've done that. And all I knew was that I had to get up and move it, like immediately. So I got up and like jogged it off a little bit. And I ended up being fine. I finished the workout, shot hoops, whatever. But it is just so tender and sore on the top of my foot right now. And I plan on playing hoops here in a little bit. And I'm just hoping somebody doesn't step on it. But so, yeah, that was my first one. And then, first calculus test, and I got a 60. So, tough scene.
That's not a tough scene. You get a 60 on a calculus test, that's impressive, honestly.
Well, yeah, but I need a 70 to at least pass the class. So, it's a tough scene. And the only points are from tests and quizzes, so tough scene.
My tough scene is just we've talked about this already on the show, but Bally Sports is officially going bankrupt. They officially filed, and the MLB is desperately looking for a place to televise their games because like 15 of the at least half of the NFL at least half of the MLB franchises use Bally Sports to televise their games. And if they're bankrupt, then where are they going to go? So some like have their own network or whatever that they televise on. A lot of, New York, Baltimore, San Francisco, Colorado, all those. But a lot of the Midwest actually has that problem. So they've debated opening up MLB.TV without blackout restrictions, which would be pretty epic. We've been begging for that for years, but I don't think that's going to happen. But so it's just tough scene is where are we going to watch baseball? And then also just earlier this week, it was Valentine's Day. So just every single person, that's a tough scene.
Worst day.
I agree. And it was 2 days after the Super Bowl.
Yeah, that's messed up, whoever did that.
Yeah, I agree.
So, moving on from that somber note, NBA trade deadline chaos. And we're going to move through these pretty fast because obviously we have barely talked NBA on the show, so we're not going to act like we know what's going on completely. But some big stuff happened. So KD to the Suns for Cam Johnson and Mikal Bridges. Pretty sudden. And the Nets racked up a ton of picks via those trades, that trade and the Kyrie to the Mavs trade as well. Obviously, that happened earlier in the week. And the Suns might be able to make a stretch run, Luke.
Yeah, we've been saying that for the last few years. So,
but
we'll see.
That Cowboy Cam is still on the Mavs, but that one is crazy. KD, I don't think he's not going to start playing until after the All-Star break because I think he's suffering a hammy right now or something like that. So I guess we'll see him in a Suns uniform later on. But
this has nothing to do with the trade deadline, but you mentioned the All-Star game. I saw a headline that the NBA, when they were going to do the draft, the players draft, that they were going to draft the reserves first to avoid the picked last. Is that real, or is that like a ball sack sports moment?
I don't know if we got ball sacked or not, to be honest. I'd have to do some deeper digging.
Did you
on
watch
that.
it?
I saw the same thing that
Has
you
the draft
saw
happened?
I think it has.
It was wild.
Because the game is Sunday.
All-Star.
I think I might watch that this year. Team Giannis versus Team LeBron.
Yeah, apparently it's actually good. So
let's see here.
James
It doesn't have the roster though.
Just says they will draft.
It's real. It's very, very real. It's on ESPN. NBA alters All-Star Game draft starters to be picked last. Baker
No way. What?
Baker Mayfield would be pissed.
That cannot be. Why? That makes no sense. Why are we drafting the reserves first?
We're just soft generation, Luke.
Oh my God, we're screwed as a society. I'm sorry. If we're doing that, we are cooked. There is no chance of coming back if this is happening. Oh my God, and it's happening right before the All-Star game too.
Yeah, I guess the teams haven't been picked yet.
Unbelievable. When I saw it, I thought it was a ball sack sports moment or butt crack sports, whatever you want to call it. I thought we were getting duped. Like, I don't know where I saw it. It was on Twitter somewhere.
Yeah.
And I laughed at first because I was like, oh, this is a joke. And then I started looking around. I was like, I think this says NBA on ESPN. I don't think this is fake. I was like, maybe they got ball sacked, but no, this is real, man. I cannot believe this.
Yeah.
And the reason they're doing it is to avoid the picked last. Do you really think an NBA All-Star gives a shit about being picked last in the All-Star game? Maybe Rudy Gobert cried about it because you remember a few years ago. Remember when it was Kevin Durant and LeBron, and they were just going back, or was it James Harden they were trying to avoid? It was either Rudy Gobert or James Harden, and they were like both avoiding him.
So funny. They did it on TV too. It was so funny.
Who was it? Was it Gobert or James Harden? I think it might have been James Harden.
It was somebody that shouldn't have been
was,
there, I think. So I don't know if it was one of them.
I think it was James Harden, now that I'm thinking about it, because I think it was resurfacing whenever the Nets traded for him. But, yeah, KD and LeBron, they kept, like, smiling at each other every single time one of them would pick because they just kept avoiding him. Maybe whoever that was, James Harden, started crying about it, and they're like, we need to change this.
It was James Harden.
Okay. That's just wild that they're doing that. That is so dumb. Or I cannot believe that is real. And for that reason, too. Like, if they just said it, we're going to switch things up, I'd be like, okay, it's kind of weird, but whatever. But they're doing it to avoid the picked last concept. That is how. First you worship China, Mr. Silver. First you give China whatever they want. You give them whatever they want on a silver platter on your knees, and then you're going to do this? What are you doing, man? God. Adam Silver is probably the best commissioner out of any of the leagues. But, man, this is a tough look for it. You know what? That's another tough scene of mine, is the NBA for doing this. It's a Mickey Mouse draft format.
Mickey Mouse seat. And then the last couple of things to round out the deadline. D'Angelo Russell to the Lakers. Again, Westbrook to the Jazz, which has become a whole conundrum because Westbrook already wants out, and they're trying to work a way out so that he can leave. Mike Conley to the Timberwolves.
Yeah, that's weird.
We'll see if that does any kind of big change. So, yeah.
Yeah, and then there's some other small moves, I guess, that that happened, but those are the big ones, obviously.
Yeah. Like we said, we're trying to keep it quicker show. We still have Say Hello, Kiss It Goodbye.
Yeah, we're bringing it back. It's been a while since we've done that.
We'll just start off here. So we have a couple show-wide Say Hellos and Kiss It Goodbye here. Show-wide Say Hello is basketball season. In particular, as we were just talking about the NBA, but mostly college basketball. Getting geared up, getting our minds right for March Madness coming up here. I think this Sunday will be officially 3 Sundays away from Selection Sunday, so we're getting there. And our show-wide Kiss It Goodbye is just football season. Now, with that being said, Battlehawks play Sunday, but real football season, NFL football season, waking up on Sunday and getting ready for a slate of games. It's no more. We start the abyss a little bit until we hit March Madness, and then we kind of come out of the abyss for a little bit. But, yeah, so kissing goodbye football season.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll get to that in a second. But you talked about basketball being started. Say hello. We could also say hello to baseball because spring training players reported
Pitchers
on
and
Monday
catchers.
to spring
Yep.
training. But here's the thing about that is that March Madness happens before opening day. So yes, baseball is kind of back, but it's more March Madness season.
You got to take a
because
back seat
conference
to the
tournaments
big show.
start. Oh, exactly. Conference tournaments. I think the Ohio Valley, the Big South, those two I know for sure. There might be some other ones. They start in a week and a half. In like 10 days, those tournaments will start. So get ready for them. I'm getting ready. I'm excited. We get 2 more weekends, and then we'll get like conference tournaments going. So I'm excited for that. I don't know if we have a tradition for this. I always went first on the fantasy corner. I don't know if we had a tradition for say hello, kiss it goodbye. Who went first
I
or
don't
not?
know if we did. I think maybe we would just bounce them back if I remember correctly. So with that in mind, I'll just go first here. My say hello is the unlocking of Sam Howell. So a Sam Howell unlocked Sam Howell offense. Big news out of our nation's capital today. Eric Bieniemy is a commander, a Washington commander, leaving the Patrick Mahomes, Andy Reid, Kansas City Chiefs for the Commanders to try and revitalize that offense from the ground up. And if he does that, even if he's the worst interviewing head coach in the world, he probably will get a job if he fixes the Commanders' offense. Or he might just get the Commanders' job if they just fire Ron
That's
Rivera.
what I was thinking.
That's very possible. So
Ron is on the hot seat.
He is. So, but this could help him because no matter what, the wins go to the head coach, not the assistant coach. So, my say
also at the same time,
unlocking of Sam Howell.
Ron Rivera. If you look at his NFL record, he's a very nice guy. Very nice guy, Ron Rivera. Very classy guy. I would love to have him as a father-in-law. But if you look at his record as an NFL head coach, it is very, very reminiscent of Cliff Kingsbury. I don't know what they are exactly on the spot right now. He's probably a little better, but definitely on the hot seat. And Bieniemy going here, he might just be like, if I have a good year and the defense sucks, then I get the head coaching job. So
it's possible because he is the assistant head coach, not just the OC. He's a double role situation kind of there.
Really?
So, yeah. So that's big for him. Maybe Rivera he could step away too. You never know. Could have something like that too and just be done. Because this second stint hasn't
been cancer not that long ago.
Great. Yeah. Beat cancer. So in terms of Cliff Kingsbury comparison, Cliff never even sniffed a Super Bowl, but that's neither here nor there. Okay.
Yeah, but that team was so good. They should have made more Super Bowls. Dude, we're being honest.
My kiss it goodbye is the Vandy Whistler. His ass is dead as of right now. So sleeping with the fishes. Well, there was a report, Luke, out of I think it was Texas, out of Houston, Texas, that there may have been a Vandy Whistler sighting. So we don't actually know if he's really dead or not. So I guess until we put this man 6 feet under, will we truly know? But if you were to ask me, much like if you were to ask me a few weeks ago if Damar Hamlin was alive, I would tell you that he was alive. If you were to ask me if the Vandy Whistler was dead, I would say yes, his ass is dead. So no more very annoying SEC baseball games. He's dead. So yeah, kissing goodbye to the Vandy Whistler.
And for the listeners who don't know who the Vandy Whistler is, he's a hardcore Vanderbilt baseball fan, and he goes to every game, and he's kind of like that annoying parent, at like your kids' baseball games that's always clapping and cheering. He does that, but he whistles. So And he probably claps too. He's very
Unbelievably
annoying.
loud on TV.
Oh yeah. I wonder if he has a ring. They've won multiple national championships. I wonder if they give him a
They
ring.
probably gave him one. Yeah, he probably has multiple, if we're being honest. So,
That's true.
All right, and to end off the show, we got Luke's.
All right. I got some good ones. Some good talking points here. I'll try to keep it quick. I had two say hellos. My first one is big bases in the MLB. We've talked about rule changes. There's a number of them happening. But the big bases officially have hit the market, the social media meme world. And yeah, they're bigger. They're bigger bases. They are probably – there's been some pictures where people edit them to be obnoxiously big, which is very funny. There's, literally just like everybody's like, oh, it's a pillow. It's like a picture of a pillow, and they're like, oh, I keep seeing these bases everywhere, man. Can't get them out of my head. So the big bases are back. Say hello to the big bases. And then my other say hello is just seasonal depression. This has been football ending, Valentine's Day, cold weather, March Madness still a month away. It has been a gruesome week for me.
School. Work.
Oh my God, school, man. Work, yeah, that's true. I started a job today. Wow. It has been I'll say I don't like to criticize, how my life's been because I'm very blessed in my life, but this was a terrible week. I'll be honest. This was a bad week mentally. Physically, it's been a bad few months. I'm probably in the worst physical shape of my entire life, probably.
Come play hoops. Said come play hoops.
I can't. I would last 5 minutes. I can't run that much. I just stand in the corner the rest of the time, hoping no one passes me the ball. But man, it's a tough scene. But I mean, we talked about it. February is just one of those months, and I'm glad that they had added another week to the NFL season to push back the Super Bowl, because used to it was like the first Sunday, and then after that you just got to hope you don't kill yourself by the end of the month.
Shout out Terry Bradshaw.
Yeah, I keep having these moments here, but
keep relating back to Terry Bradshaw. Not a good sign.
When will you guys start worrying for me? Is the real question. But yeah, I mean, it's once you hit March, you start to feel a little better, but the first half of March really sucks as well. It doesn't really get good until like the second half of March, when you get March Madness, you get spring starting, you get warmer temperatures. But yeah, Cam, the next month is gonna suck, man.
Yeah,
we got a taste of it this week. It is not gonna be fun.
Oh yeah, I'm totally on board with what you're saying, because I think it was Wednesday. I had a take. I said, if you had to choose a point of the year for the world to end, and we'll get to this in a second, end of days types of situations here all of a sudden. If you had to pick a time of year for the world to end, Wednesday or Tuesday was a really great time for the world to just end. And I was thinking about that, in the middle of a brutal semester, cold as shit, Valentine's Day, football's over, still far away from March Madness. Yeah, so just all those things.
Me personally,
for the world to die. I'll say that.
Yeah, me personally, I would have picked Monday, because then we could still enjoy the Super Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
But then we don't have to get up and go to work or school the next day. We just are gone. We don't have to deal with Valentine's Day. We don't have to deal with the cold weather. Literally just, as soon as I went to bed after the Super Bowl, if the world would have ended, I would have been perfectly fine with that. No offense, and then speaking of the world ending, that's also my kiss it goodbye is the world, because Cam, there is some weird shit happening right now, and it is piling up, and it is getting very out of control very fast. And I saw a tweet.
Great tweet.
And it said, we are getting way too close to the, in quotation marks, the NBA has suspended the season moment now. Like, we're getting way too close to that line. This is I'm getting deja vu, honestly, because if you remember, it wasn't until late February in 2020 when we started really like worrying about, the coronavirus hitting. And then just in the matter of a few days, literally the world shut down in the matter of a few days. And, obviously we had the Chinese weather balloon fiasco that happened. I think it was 2 weeks ago now. So that kind of started it all, but then we've had a number of UFOs, which could just be, just
more balloons,
random drones, but yeah, we shot a missile at one of those UFOs and missed. So
$400,000.
That's a bad look.
Tax dollars.
$400,000 that you paid in taxes gone because some dumbass couldn't aim correctly.
And a balloon.
This must be how the Nets feel, having to pay Ben Simmons to miss shots. That you're just paying for,
if you're even lucky enough for him to take
anti-greatness.
Yeah,
exactly. And then obviously the train derailments. There's been obviously the one in East Palestine, which when I first saw the train derailment in East Palestine, I thought we were talking about the Middle East. I'll be completely honest with that, but it's actually in Ohio. So there's a bunch of toxic chemicals there. There was a train derailment carrying toxic chemicals in South Carolina earlier this week. There was a truck that was carrying toxic chemicals that flipped over in Tucson. And then there was one yesterday, there was reports that it was fake. It was from it wasn't fake, but it was from years ago, and people were bringing it back up. I forget where that was at, but I'm drawing a blank on where it was. But there's some questionable things going on right now, and it's not adding up. No, it is adding up, and it's adding up to March 2020 in my book. So, and I'm just here to say this right now: if the world closes down right before March Madness, like it did in 2020, there may be some serious crimes being committed by myself. And these are not like shoplifting crimes. These are very, very serious that could put me in jail for a long time. Not going to say what they are specifically because I want to keep you guys. I want you guys to keep your guard up, but I don't want you expecting anything. Expect the unexpected. But man, if that happens right before March Madness again, and the tournament gets canceled, someone is going to get hurt. Maybe myself, but
myself. Hurt myself
personally. So, I can't do that. I can't do it again, man. It was fun. There were parts of that pandemic that were fun. There was the online aspect was kind of fun. Just playing video games every night. But if that happened now in my life, it wouldn't be fun. Like I was at a point in my life where I could deal with it and it would be fine. Now, it wouldn't be. So if the world ends, the world is going to end, man. it's going to end for me one way or another. So that got really dark for a second. I don't like that. I don't like ending the show on that note. It got really dark, man. This is the second week that I've admitted to crimes. Second straight week.
Well, no, this is pre-crime. You haven't done anything yet. You haven't done anything yet. You're good.
This is like the third show out of the last 5 that I've mentioned killing myself or killing other people's selves. I'm losing it, man. I'm going off the rails. I need March Madness.
No pun intended.
I need March Madness there. Yeah, no pun intended, but I need March Madness. You got anything else to close the show with, Cam?
I don't. That's the show.
Where have you been, man? That's the show. Episode 50, man. Half a century. We can preview the next episode a little bit. So me and Cam were talking. We'll give the listeners some insight here. We got some time. It's a shorter show, but we're talking about some of the scheduling that we're going to do. We're going to do the March Madness bracket thing again, I think, immediately after Selection Sunday. But we have 2 shows in between this one and then that we got to find. We gotta make up shit to talk about, basically. So we're trying to get some interviews set up that would eat some of that time, which would be very, very cool to listen to and conduct. And then next week, we were actually going to do it this week, but we postponed it to next week. We're going to do the coaching higher grades for the NFL, similar to what we did in episode 2, which was of last year's coaching cycle. So we'll do that next week. So be on the lookout for that, and maybe a potential interview. So be very fun for the listeners to stay tuned. Kim, you want to close us on a song? We got to have outro music, but we can't copyright. So
no, I don't have a song.
I'm just thinking one on the spot. She told me her name was Billie Jean. She caused a scene. To be in the one. And we dance on the floor.
The road that you traveled on is one way here and the next day gone. Sometimes you turn your back to the wind. There's a world. There's a world outside every darkened door. Something.
Life is a highway.
I want to drive it all night long. All right, we'll see you guys next week.